Hello, this is Arnold Mangioli for Grateful, Ready, Open, Willing. So happy to be with you today. Today we're doing a Q&A. It's just actors writing in questions and myself as a casting director giving some answers. I know it's a very heightened time in our country and in our world. And of course, the natural reaction to something like that might be, is this guy not aware of all of the troubles and difficulties going on in our country right now and everything that's happening and the protests all throughout? Deep breath. Yes, I am aware. Or you might ask yourself, does this guy not seem to understand that there's a world pandemic going on and there are no auditions right now, so there might not be any questions? Deep breath. Yes, I am aware of that too. However, there will be a time when this comes back, and we want to be ready, and we want to be open and willing to work again. And that will come. Our industry in show business and the performing arts and the entertainment industry is temporarily decimated as I record this. Temporarily. It will come back. A year, a few months. We're reopening soon, phase 1. We'll see how it goes. Maybe it'll be longer than a year. Maybe it'll be 2 years. Maybe it'll only be a few months. Maybe by the end of the summer we'll be back. We don't know yet. The anticipation is that we hope to have a vaccine in a year and the world landscape will change and things will begin to go back into production. We, as a casting director, we have shows going on that were stopped of that weekend of the full moon and Friday the 13th and the Ides of March, when everything kind of came together and show business closed down the day before that and everything stopped for the time being. So it's been maybe 12 weeks as I record this, and things are anticipated to come back at some point, and at some point they will. So when they do, what do we want to see happen? Do we want to be basically in the same place coming out of this as we were when we went into it? So my question is, if before March 13th we were dealing with auditions where we were having some struggles, some troubles, we had some questions, there were things not working out, how were we processing that? And now it's been 12 weeks, maybe it'll be another 12 weeks, maybe it'll be another 12 weeks after that. But it's been 12 weeks, and if we've been doing some nurturing and some self-care and taking care of ourselves, maybe we're just on downtime, maybe we're slowing up, maybe our hands are full, maybe we have loved ones who are ill, or we're dealing with personal tragedies or difficulties, or perhaps we ourselves have suffered from COVID-19 and various illnesses related. Or our loved ones. There's a lot of people going through a lot with this. I understand. If, like most of us, you have been quarantined and sheltered in place and asked to pause, as the governor of New York has put it, or shelter in place or lockdown, as other states have put it, other countries in the world have phrased it, do we want to come out of this the same way we went in, with the same questions and not having processed a bit? So what this is about here at the moment, this particular recording, is about taking a moment to look at that. Taking a moment to say, okay, so 12 weeks have gone by. This is where I am now. Let's say it takes another 12 weeks. Where do I want to be coming out of that? Where do I want to be at the end of that 12 weeks coming up? And beginning to give some attention to that part of ourselves as a professional, as an actor, as an entertainment industry professional. Beginning to give a bit of attention to say, okay, these are some things I want to look at. These are some things I'd like to get better at. So the focus of this is simply to give you an opportunity to ask questions, and you are more than welcome to put it in the chat if you have a question, and we will be doing several Q&A episodes, and we will take questions from the chats. So by all means, if you'd like to make a comment with a question you have as an actor or performing arts professional, or anything that you think might be relevant for this, we'll be very happy to look at that, and we will take from those questions that you post into our future broadcasts when we do Q&A segments. So that's what this is. This is not about being wildly out of touch. This is not about saying, show business is still going on, let's just do it. It's not oblivious. It's about saying, how can we take care of ourselves and begin to take steps forward? Begin to not necessarily spend the next 12 weeks completely focused on our headshot and resume and our websites and our social media platforms and figuring out how to make that the most polished state. I mean, that's great if you want to do that. But this is more about beginning to open up to processing what we want to get to, where we want to be when this turns and we start to come out of it and begin auditioning again. So it doesn't come out of a dormant period that has been nothing but dormant, where nothing happened. We can, without obsessing and overwhelming ourselves and driving ourselves crazy by trying to do too much too quickly, we can begin to look at it and we can grow. Sark, Susan Ariel Rainbow Kennedy, whom I've mentioned before and whom I've coached with and who I'm just a great fan of, she calls it processes of creating and collapsing, and that we all have various times of creation and various times of collapse. So perhaps you've been in a period of collapse over this last 12 weeks. Perfectly acceptable. No judgment, no problem. Perhaps we are ready to begin a period of creation, creating, opening up to possibility. So the questions that have been submitted are ones I will answer somewhat spontaneously and just see what's here and what some of us want to know. Okay, so we're going to start with a question from Michael that says, "This sounds cool. What is it?" That's great. Thank you, Michael. Great question. And some of this is evolving as we go. So yes, grateful, ready, open, willing. It's something I've been mulling on for a long time, that has had various incarnations that I've talked about in classes and workshops that I've done. It's been a dream of mine that is finally being realized. Let me see if I can explain it a little more clearly. There's nothing like it for me to point to. I'm not able to say to you, grateful, ready, open, willing. It's just like this other thing that's out there. It's not like anything I know of that's out there. But what it is a safe space for artists. I've always prided myself on trying to create safe spaces for artists, to varying degrees of success, as there are so many variables involved in the audition process and in what I do as a casting director. But I've created Access Forum for Actors, which is a musical theater workshop where all of the profits go to MCC New York, which is a church in New York City, which runs, among other things, one of the largest food pantries for the homeless in all of New York, and one of the only LGBTQ plus safe shelters for homeless youth. So the music directors and I work for free and donate our time so that we can offer classes at a very low price in musical theater audition technique and work with actors. And what the actors do pay for the classes, which is quite minimal, goes directly to the work of MCC New York. So that is one of the things that we do. It is a safe space. An actress who came to the workshop relatively early on works in Cape Cod. She's wonderful, and she's a very big deal in the Cape Cod theater scene, which is where she lives up there these days. And she said to me, "You've really created something special here." She happened to be in town, and she dropped by Access Forum. She said, "You've really created something special. I mean, I said I didn't have sheet music, and that woman next to me said, 'Oh, here, look at my book, take something of mine, and just sing it.'" She said, that's not the New York I was auditioning in that I remember from a few years back. You've created a safe space where actors support one another and there's more of a sense of community than I'm used to seeing. So I thought that was really interesting, and it's something that I've always tried to do in my audition rooms and in all the work that I do. So Grateful, Ready, Open, Willing is a sort of a much more extended version of that, where it opens to the community to say, what can we contribute? What do we want to do? What do we want to make happen? What would be wonderful? And how can we support one another in kindness? When we are done with this pandemic, I don't fully expect that we're going to have actors sitting there all cutthroat in the waiting area of the auditions. I think actors will be so happy to be there. And I don't think we'll have as many actors blithely turning down jobs and saying, oh, I don't want to do that. I just want to stay in New York and see if something else happens. I think what we may begin to see is actors with more yes energy saying yes to the job and opening up to possibilities instead of saying, well, maybe that's not good enough for my career. How about just the opportunity to do the work is what's wonderful. It's what I want to spend my time in this manifestation of life doing. So yes, I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And so Grateful, Ready, Open, Willing is a safe space for actors, entertainment professionals, show business professionals, working together in community. We have a Facebook group, we're on Instagram, we're here on YouTube, and I would love it if you would subscribe to our channel, because we do these videos periodically and it would be nice if you knew about them. You don't have to watch every single one, but if you know it's there, then you know it's there and you have that opportunity and there's a possibility. And if you're open to it, if you're ready for what we have to talk about, if you're willing, a lot can happen. And a lot of gratitude can come from the fruition of the possibilities of what can happen. So please subscribe. Click the link down below. I think it's down below. Maybe it's up above or to the side. But wherever it is, subscribe to our channel. And you'll hear more from us. So this is a place, a community, a place for community, where actors, entertainment professionals, theater people, and creative people of all kinds can come together to support one another. It's a safe space where I, as a casting director, I've been a Broadway casting director for more than 30 years. I've worked on an array of projects with the top people in show business and really wonderful directors and writers and creative teams, music directors, choreographers, composers, lyricists, people that have taught me a great deal. And I like to share that. I like to offer that gift of what I have learned so that it can help you to better your career and help to move you forward. And a casting colleague of mine said to me many years ago, I never read audition books because I learned at Carnegie Mellon that they all go out of date by the time they're published because it keeps changing. And it's true. The technology keeps changing. I promise you the technology of what we were doing before March 13th and the technology and how we will be doing this in the coming months and the coming year are going to be wildly different. The technology has been changing all along, but when we get to getting back after this pandemic, it's going to be at a whole different plane. There'll be a lot more recorded auditions, at least for a while, a lot more taped auditions, a lot more self-tapes and self-submits. There will be different routines and different protocols followed, and a lot more will change very quickly. What I started to look at was the stuff that doesn't change. The stuff that doesn't change is what gets you cast. It's what gets you the job. It's what gets you where you want to be, not just in show business, but also in our lives. So gratitude, readiness, openness, willingness, these are qualities that help to give us a good career, help us to audition well, help us to book the job, and help us to feel a good life. So that's what this is about. I am mostly known as a casting director. I also teach. I've taught a course called Preparing for the Profession for actors at NYU at the School of the Arts there for many years, 2 decades, in fact. And for over a decade, I have worked as a life coach. I have trained as a life coach in 3 different schools of life coaching. And combined with my experience in the audition room and as a casting director, I have several clients nowadays I would probably call it many clients, with whom I work privately. And the point of life coaching, at least in what I do with it, is to help empower you and to reveal the light and the power and the ability to navigate your career that exists within you. So all of what I know and what I've learned and what I offer as a casting director, as a teacher, as a life coach, comes together here in this offering that I make to you. Grateful, ready, open, willing. Subscribe, join us, be with us, and let's take this journey together. Okay, so welcome. Let's start with some questions. Oh, we did that, right. Michael had the first question. What is it? And I answered that one. Okay, so Aaron says, how do we keep the faith alive that theater will come back? I keep hearing so many conflicting things about when Broadway will reopen. I believe theater will be around for future generations, but I'm scared. Would love to hear some inspiration and perspective. Faith that theater will come back. Okay, so theater will come back. Theater is an ancient art form. Theater was around in ancient Greece and ancient Rome. From those civilizations, what do we have? We have ruins, rubble, big stones that we kick around, giant staircases that I've climbed in both of those countries, in Italy and in Greece, in Athens and in Rome, both cities, and throughout the surrounding areas. And we have plays. That's mostly what we have from those civilizations. I mean, other things as well, but mostly that's what we've got. So it's been around a long time. That fabulous invalid. That's a wonderful term that it came out in the 1930s. I think it might have been in a theater arts magazine publication way back then. It's almost 100 years ago now. The fabulous invalid. It might have been George Kaufman or Noel Coward who coined the term that fabulous invalid, because the theater is always ailing, it's always not making money, it's always in trouble, it's always dying, but it always survives, and it always brings the light. And there's always that moment that happens. I remember when I was working on the casting of Bill T. Jones' Fela on Broadway, and during previews, I went up to Bill and I said, you know, this is the kind of show that when a guy like me is ready to leave show business and gets to work on something like this, it'll keep me in this business for at least another 20 years. Just the possibility that something this wonderful can happen. And Bill was so gracious. And he said, but Arnold, you did this. You brought me the bodies on which I created this story and this show. Collaboration. It's such a beautiful gift. So theater, it's been around since way before we were all here, and it will be around way after we are gone. Trust and enjoy and live in the faith. Don't live in the fear. It'll be back. It's already back. I mean, we have new platforms, but I saw just the other day, Nancy Opel had a magnificent performance of David Ives' plays on Seth Rudetsky's Stars in the House. We also, there was a National Theater broadcast of Gillian Anderson's Streetcar Named Desire, Tennessee Williams' Streetcar Named Desire, starring Gillian Anderson, that just ripped my heart out. I mean, I was bawling by the end of it. It was brilliant. Roundabout Theater Company is broadcasting Holiday Inn. There's so many shows that are being offered. So many Zoom readings. I just saw the Public Theater Apple Plays, the one that Richard Nelson wrote for Zoom. What do we need to talk about? So we've shifted our platform for the time being because physically we cannot gather together in the dark with strangers to laugh and cry and understand our lives better the way we usually do. But we can gather on these internet platforms, and we can gather in live streaming, and we share and continue. So in a way, theater doesn't even need to come back. It's just shifted platforms for the time being. Faith. Okay, Vicky asks, what are you doing for self-care right now? Great question. Thank you, Vicky. So for myself, My self-care involves a certain number of things during this quarantine. Firstly, I've been taking some meditation workshops at the Shambhala Meditation Center, which is available online, and they've been doing a pay what you can offering for some of those classes. And I'm now at level 2 of their workshops and enjoying it very much. So I've been engaged in a meditation practice every day. You know, it's a meditation practice. It's like these attributes: gratitude, readiness, openness, willingness. They're practices. They're not things we necessarily excel at. I certainly don't. I practice them. I do my best to stay in a state of gratitude. I do my best to focus on that for which I'm grateful. I do my best to stay open and willing and ready. I don't always achieve it every moment. You know, you may see me frustrated walking down a New York street in the midst of a crowd trying to get to or from auditions and in the crowd. You know, I wouldn't say pushing people out of the way, but I would say in my New Yorker crowded rush hour mode. And you might say, that guy is not a grateful, ready, open, willing person at all, and he's like leading this thing. I practice it. I try my best. I fail. I learn from the failures. I practice. So one of my self-care rituals or routines is meditation, and I practice it. Mostly, my mind is racing all over the place. I'm overcome with thoughts. I practice quieting my mind. I practice peacefulness. I practice being calm and still and allowing my thoughts to pass through as thoughts, so that we can look at that and say, okay, well, if the thoughts are just passing through, then who is the person who's doing the thinking? That is who I am. Let me try to understand who I am without my thoughts. That's an oversimplified description of my meditation practice. So I meditate to take care of the mind. I physically exercise virtually every day. It's been almost every day. I work with some discs of a workout routine, and I just plug them into my old DVD player and watch them on the screen of my television, and I do the workout. You know, they're a little above my level, so some of them are basically an hour and 15 minutes of almost all push-ups. It takes me about 3 hours to get through it, but I get through it. You know, I have to take a few breaks in between. I'm not a Mr. America when it comes to doing that kind of work on my chest, back, shoulders, arms, but I practice. It's been about 12 weeks, and I've been getting better. It still takes me a while. So I'm trying to take care of myself mentally with meditation, physically with working out, because during quarantine, you know, I'm not running up and down New York City subway steps and catching trains and rushing here to teach a class and there to do a workshop and back up to my office for a coaching and then back to a casting session. That's not what's happening right now. So for me right now, I am doing my daily workout routine. Practice. So that's mentally and that's physically. And then spiritually, I'm doing everything I can to offer service. So I am staying in touch with elderly people. My mom is 93 years old. I call her every day, send her care packages. I think the CDC has lifted the guidelines or shifted them slightly where with certain cares and precautions, we will be able to take the risk, because it's a lower risk now, of actually going to see her, wearing a mask, staying 6 feet away, which you will not understand at all, but just so that I can at least be with her. But also staying in touch by phone and other ways with elderly friends and people who are perhaps more isolated by the current conditions. That is something that spiritually is very nourishing, because when we give away, when we do service, when we give away what we have, that's how we understand having it. You know, so when we offer kindness, when we offer compassion, when we reach out to others, these are the things that let us know or help us to understand more tangibly what the kindness and compassion is that is within us. by expressing it. So that's how I'm taking care of myself spiritually. I also have my church, MCC New York, which is a wonderful place. And they run, among other things, one of the largest food pantries in the homeless in all of New York City, and their clients have doubled since this pandemic has begun. And the numbers keep going up because more people need help and assistance and food. So they do that service and that work. And they also run one of the only safe LGBTQ plus safe shelters for homeless kids. 4 in 10 homeless youth are LGBTQ plus. Those numbers may be even higher nowadays, but there are only 3 LGBTQ plus safe shelters in New York City, and they run one of them. So they're at mccny.org if you want to take a look at some of the work they're doing. And they have their Sunday services broadcast every Sunday. So that is also a part of my spiritual caretaking. So those are some of the things that I do to nurture myself during this time. And they've been really wonderful. I'm very grateful for those. Jusan says, do you believe that taking online workshops and master classes for hundreds of dollars during this pandemic is worth it? I do not think spending $100, hundreds of dollars on anything in this pandemic is worth it. That seems kind of silly. I don't think anything like that being offered right now is particularly in touch with the realities of what's going on. I think that in this moment in the pandemic, that would seem extreme. There is so much available either for free or for a donation to a food bank or to the Actors Fund. So much of what we do, our Facebook group has a button, donate to the Actors Fund. And some of our events coming up, we will offer them a small donation to a food bank as a way of acknowledging your participation, so that we can all community-wise help one another. So if you're watching this video and you feel so inspired and you want to give $5 to a food bank or MCC New York, as I mentioned, they run pretty big food pantry, one of the biggest in New York. That would be a lovely way to show your appreciation for our time and efforts here, and also to help others and take care of ourselves spiritually and do some service. So I'm a big fan of that. But in this time period, I'm not talking about 6 months from now, a year from now. At that time, workshops, certainly workshops with a Broadway casting director, generally cost several $100s for a few weeks of participation. Generally, they meet once a week, and we meet 4 or 6 times, and that workshop for general participation would usually cost $300 or $400. That's about the normal rate of things. It's just that times are not normal right now. And I think right now there's enough workshops and master classes available online for free that you don't need to be paying for that. As things get back to normal, as our economy shifts into a better place, I expect that we will be much more able to enjoy some of the things that we've always enjoyed doing, like going out and spending hundreds of dollars on things. And I hope you'll come to our workshops and coachings when that time comes. For now, this is a gift. Okay, Abby asks, when skimming a resume, what are the first sections that tend to jump out to you as a casting director? Would an actor with a lot of shows under their belt be better off listing as many as possible or only highlighting a few? Okay, thank you, Abby. So you are putting together a resume and looking at it from left to right. You're looking at the show and the role you played and the theater it was at, or the producer or director or where you worked in the third column. I am reading it in reverse. First thing I want to know is where you've worked, what you're doing, what theaters you've worked at. And then I want to know what role you've played. And then I want to know what the show was. Because we cast all kinds of things. We cast big lead roles in Broadway and television and film. And the places you've worked are going to give us an idea if you have that level of experience. We also cast understudies for shows in regional theater that pay relatively little Perhaps they pay, certainly compared to television, but perhaps if it's a Lort C or a Lort D contract, and perhaps if it's a equity membership candidate or a non-equity position at that equity theater, it'll pay less than the standard equity minimums for those particular slots that every theater has a few of for equity membership candidates. So I look at where you've worked, who you've been directed by, what you've done, the places you worked. I have a sense of, well, that would not be insulting to ask this actor to come and audition for this, because it would be a good opportunity for them based on their resume. Or I can look at that and say, no, their work has gone well beyond this gig, so that would not be appropriate to ask you. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm reading right to left, the reverse order from how you've written it. And you asked about also about if it makes sense to take credits off of your resume. Well, it's got to be a page. And I think as long as you're keeping it to a page, it probably makes sense to keep it to what's reasonable in that. Okay, so Mark says, hey Arnold, what are the top 5 or 15 things actors should never do in an audition? Okay, so first of all, there's no shoulds. And we'll conclude with this question because the video is coming to an end here. We don't use the word should. Louise Hay says the word should is always to make ourselves wrong or make someone else wrong. So let's throw that word out in the garbage and not use it anymore. Let's replace it with the word could. Could is a very empowering word. So let me give you an example. If you have an audition, and from that audition you leave there saying, oh, I should have done so much better. I should have prepared the material better. I should have learned my monologue better. I should have had different options for song choices to sing, or, whatever is relevant. It's entirely different as an experience, as your mind registers it. It is entirely different than the experience of coming out of there and saying, I could have learned that material better. I could learn my monologue better. I could have more options for songs in my book. I could prepare better for my auditions. See, that is a completely empowering experience to take away with you. That is something that the mind registers and goes, oh yes, okay, I could. I'm empowered. And that's where you want to be with it. So I would remove the word should from the equation entirely, and I would go with what you could do. So what are the 5 or 15 things that an actor could never do in an audition? And then let's take it further and phrase it in the positive. What are the 5 to 15 things that an actor could do in an audition, as opposed to could never do, but could do to enable themselves to get further, book the job, get better? Most of it for me comes down to preparation. I could show up on time, show up early so that I'm completely ready at my appointment time. Your appointment time is not the time you arrive at the audition. Your appointment time is the time you go in the room to do your work. So whatever you need to prepare, if you need 5 minutes, if you need a half hour, if you need 15 minutes, if you need to run in the restroom and refresh, and today it's a very hot day here as I record this, so I'm a little schwitzy and I might need to go refresh before I want to go in the audition room if I'd been rushing on a hot New York City day or Los Angeles day or Chicago day or whatever to an audition. So you allow that preparation time and you could be ready to walk in the room at your appointment time. You could prepare. Preparation is essential. And I know that sounds like something kind of that's obvious, but really, the number of times I've seen it happen. I was in auditions with Michael Greif a few years ago, and it was a new project and really exciting project. I'm thrilled to be working on it, and I had given this actress a break to come in. I gave her an appointment time because a very established actress fell out, and it was like 2 or 3 days before. And I thought, let's give this girl a try. She was relatively new, more recently out of school. And she came in with the material and looked at the sides as if for the very first time, as if she had never read them out loud before. And she just read them like this. And Michael turned to me and said, a little prep? How about a little prep? Because it was so noticeable that the preparation just wasn't done. And you have an audition for a big new musical directed by Michael Greif, you want to prepare because he ain't used to seeing unprepared actors in his auditions. So that's the main thing. And that's not about technology and not about how you do it and not about what background do I need for when I go on tape, when I self-tape. That's not what it's about. It's about you. You're the thing we're casting. You're the essence of what we're looking for, your soulfulness. And that preparation includes choosing your action, knowing who am I as the character, every detail about who I am as the character that I put forward, what my intention is, what my action is, what I'm fighting for in the scene or the monologue or the song or the material. You want to have some sense of where am I and what time am I there, some sense of your physical state, some sense of what do I want, what am I going to do after I do or don't get what I want, how am I going to get what I want, which is going to affect where the beat changes are in the scenes and how you deal with them. Those are the things we're looking for, because you're preparing that work and bringing that work to the table, whether it's on a tape or whether it's in the audition room or whether it's on camera. That's the thing that we're casting. We're casting somebody who can handle it, and that tells us that you can handle it. So those are the things that an actor could do in the audition. And Mark, back to your question, the things an actor could never do would be to not come in unprepared or having thoroughly fleshed out all of those questions with the material so that we get some sense of what you do in the role when we cast you, which is what we want in the audition experience. So that's about all the time we have for questions today. I'm going to ask you please to feel free to put some questions down into the comments, and we'll go back and look at these for our next videos, future videos, and maybe we'll get to your question there. All right, this is Arnold Mangioli for Grateful, Ready, Open, Willing. Thank you for joining us. Please subscribe to our channel. We only have good things to say, and we really look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you, and be well.